Thank you. Please be seated. Mrs. Durham, would you please honor us with a roll call?
Ms. Jett. Here. Mr. Short.
Here.
Mr. Graham.
Here.
Dr. Raymond.
Here.
Ms. Williams. Here. Ms. Kern.
Ms. Kern will not be here tonight.
Mr. Bates.
Here.
Mr. Green.
Here. Before we go into the approval of the agenda, I'd like to make an addition to the current agenda. Under, let's see if I did. My glasses are fogging up, so I have to try to read them out, I guess. That's not going to work either. Under, I think it's 10.5, coronavirus relief funds, there is a plan to implement those, which will require a board decision. And let's add that to 11.3 action. I think it will appear as CRF hazard pay. Anyone have objection to adding that to their agenda? Make it change? Okay, in that case, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
And those in favor of approving the agenda as amended, let it know by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. So the agenda is approved. Let's see, number 5, school highlights. Dr. Mullins.
Thank you, Mr. Greer. We would like to start our school highlights tonight, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Certainly it's a privilege to be able to recognize some individuals who are retiring, moving on into the next exciting stage of their lives. And certainly these individuals have served the children of Wise County faithfully and helped make our division one of the finest school divisions in the Commonwealth. And we certainly wish them the very best in the next adventures that they embark upon. Some of them are with us tonight and some are not, couldn't be with us for a variety of reasons. But we want to thank these individuals for the passion and expertise that they brought with them each day throughout their careers. And the impact that they've had on our students and our school communities has been tremendous. They will be missed, but we certainly wish them the very best, and hope that all of those things that they have been thinking about doing, and travels and other, as I say, adventures, we wish them the very best and hope that they have a lot of joy throughout their time. But we, again, will certainly want to miss them. And I'm going to, if they're comfortable in doing so, I'm going to ask those that are with us tonight as I call their name, if they would, to come forward, and we will socially distance, and I'm going to present them with a plaque, and we'd like to get a photograph with them and their plaques. And again, we'll spread out, and certainly if you're not comfortable doing that, that's fine as well. Our first retiree that we will recognize tonight is Ms. Deborah Taylor, down at Central High School, which is Oaktown High School. She's been with us for 20 years. Ms. Taylor. I started to do that, but I won't. And our next plaque is presented to Miss Gail Miller out at LF Addington. She's been with us for 27 years. retiree is Miss Larvina Harvey, from Union Primary School, has been with us 22 years. Our next retiree, Miss Diana Kilgore, Coburn Primary School, has been with us 37 years. Did you get a photograph, Mr. Guy?
Get individually, but if we could, I'll get them to stagger, maybe a couple stand up top there in front of the board, and the other two come over here towards the middle. That way we can just kind of get a socially distanced group picture. Yeah, that'd be great.
We are smiling under these masks.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Congratulations.
And thanks to all the retirees. We couldn't have done what we do without you doing what you do so well for so long. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'm going to read the names and schools and years for those who could be with us tonight, and we will see that they get their plaques when they're able to be with us. Miss Elizabeth Johnson, Union Primary School, 21 years. Miss Cindy Bates, worked here at the school board office, 36 years. Becky French, Coburn Middle School, 31 years. Mr. Jeffrey Dodson, Eastside High School, 31 years. Mr. Tommy Miller, teacher up at the Career Center, 24 years. Ms. Doris Dorton, over at LF Addington, 41 years. Ms. Pamela Rife, worked in our early childhood program, 30 years. Ms. Kathy Dean, from down at Coburn Middle School, 17 years. And Pat Bungardner, who's one of our physical therapists. Pat was with us for 11 years. Susan Collins, teacher from down the east side, 31 years. Ms. Debbie Roberts, over at LF Addington, 32 years. And Mr. Junior Patrick, one of our computer techs, with us 27 years. We appreciate all of them, and as I say, we'll make sure that they each get their plaques. So we appreciate it. Mr. Chair and members of the board, for a number of years, and Mr. Greer, you and Mr. Bates, and probably all of you, we've looked for creative ways to provide an outside area or additional outside area at Coburn Middle School for our students to exercise and enjoy great outdoors, sunshine, fresh air, and of course, as all of you are aware, the outside space there is somewhat limited, and the quest to enhance the available space that we have has been a priority for some time. And we've been down and we look for ways to build a bridge, maybe over the road, to get over to the some of the area there next to the football field, and see if we can maybe cut some brush and develop. And nothing that we looked into, we could make it work. And so I think a very creative approach to adding some outdoor space at the school, that school has embarked upon and had a vision for doing that. And I'm going to ask Ms. Church and a member of her staff to come forth and share their plan with us to make this happen. So, ladies, come on up.
having us, school board members, chairman, and Dr. Mullins. It's a pleasure to speak with you this evening about an exciting project that we are getting ready to embark on at Cover Middle School. This has been something that has been in our hearts and minds for many, many years. Like Dr. Mullins said, we've been trying to come up with some different ways and different possibilities that we can provide an outdoor space for our kids. And through the help of my faculty and staff, and especially Ms. Kara Atkins right here, she's got the project going and started. It basically, the name of the project is Build It and We Will Play. Now, we've been working on this for a while now, and we got halted due to COVID. We were on track last year to do a lot of things and get some things started, but we had to halt that process, and we're getting ready to get back on track again since we're back in school and ready to go. We have come up with a volunteer committee consisting of myself and several of the teachers, and of course Kara is the chairman of that committee, and I'm going to turn this over to her because this is her baby, her project. And so I'm going to turn it over to her and let her explain kind of what we're looking at and what we hope to be doing the next year, well, at least the next several months, a year, however long it takes us to get it going.
Good evening. I'm Kara Atkins, a digital applications teacher and administrator of the Build It and We Will Play Playground Committee at Cover Middle School. I would like to begin by saying thank you to Dr. Mullins for allowing me time to present our playground concept during the board meeting. Additionally, I would like to thank the board for your time and open minds in hearing our proposal. I also want to continue with a huge thank you to Gary Lawson and Deidre Church for listening to my vision and working on this project. Lastly, I want to express my gratitude to the Playground Committee members for all their time and hard work spent on the project. Project Cover Middle, Build It and We Will Play, headed by faculty and administration at Cover Middle School, hopes to create a place for our students of all abilities to play and create memories. We are excited about this project, and we would like to share a vision with you of the planned additional playground. Since the building of our new resource wing in 2008, our students have had only the limited grassy area in front of the school and paved area behind the school for outdoor play and exercise. Additional play areas are essential to be successful in other programs that CMS would like to implement, including the Morning Mile, an outdoor educational area, and an outdoor exercise system. Finding a suitable site for our playground has not been without challenges. Initially, we considered sharing the high school football practice field across the street from the middle school. In addition to the precarious safety issue of being across the street, the site does not have stairs nor convenient street access. It was decided with preparation we could utilize the property behind the middle school, allowing for easy access by CMS students. I'd like to share with you a brief PowerPoint presentation that highlights our plans and goals. This is our existing paved play area behind the school. This is the existing grassy play area in front of the school. In 2019, we received some play equipment donations from Lowe's Home Improvement. Our local Coburn Kiwanis Club assembled the donated swings, which is to the left, and in addition to painting the kickball playing area as seen below the paragraph, hopscotch is on the right, and then Foursquare playing area on the left. They added all this addition to our existing paved playground area. This is the proposed area for the new playground and outdoor classroom area. And then this is an aerial view of the proposed playground and outdoor classroom area. The existing playground is at the bottom here. And then the blue area would be the not accessible area. The yellow, we hope to be a track all the way around the play area. The red is fencing, and then the black is the additional play area that we would add. Being armed with the insights and plans, it is my hope that you will not only feel informed about the Build It When We Will Play project, but also have the same sense of enthusiasm and excitement that my fellow committee members, Ms. Church and I, feel about building and playing on our playground. This concludes my presentation, and thank you very much.
Do you have any questions about the area? I know it's hard just to see if there's any questions that maybe we can answer. We have talked with the Kiwanis, the Cover Kiwanis Club, and that's why when we started this project, to get something right away, that's why they came up and they have to paint the foursquare and do the kickball field, the kickball area, and things like that. Ms. Atkins has kind of met with some community people and organizations as well, and we want to try to do some fundraising and get some things that way so we can start on our project.
And so far, they have been able to, of course, got some grant funding and raise some funds, some fundraisers, and some donations, and I will hand it to these ladies and their staff. They have hustled and pulled together coins from various places, and so far they've been able to not only have that vision, but it looks like it's going to come to fruition, and certainly take my hat off to them. And when I went down and first looked at the area, I said, I'm not sure this can happen, but they were sure it could happen, and once Gary sort of got involved, and we got some folks looking at it, and so we're hopeful maybe in a few brief months that we'll make it come to life down there. But we wanted to come up and just share with you their dream and how they're going to make it happen. So we thank you, ladies.
I have one question. The walking track or the walking trail, what is it, about 1/8 of a mile or something like that?
Our estimation, I'm thinking we measured a mile.
We measured a mile.
Okay.
Now and what we want to do, we put that slide back up with the aerial view. We talked about the possibility, we have to do these kind of in phases, is to get it cleared off and get, the basics done. But the blue area there that's not accessible, that could be, we were looking at maybe something like what St. Paul has, the Estonia project, but it could be maybe some sort of an educational, I know that Ms. Carter takes some of her kids from the high school, takes them to St. Paul for water samples and that kind of thing. But that area is a marsh type of area, and it would be a good area for water samples and, just basic. That could be an educational area as well. I know when the Army Corps of Engineers came, Gary had them down to look at the area. That is, we can't really do anything with that area because it is like the marshy area, but we can use it as an educational tool. And we would like to eventually incorporate that in with this project as well.
I'm delighted to hear your plans because it's needed something like this for so long. And of course, like you said, when I was there, we had the area where the gymnasium is. And so it wasn't quite an urgent issue. But with the gymnasium, the footprint of that takes up a lot of space. And I'm really delighted to see this. Good job, and best of luck to you on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Mr. Chair, members of the board, the next highlight that we'd like to share with you tonight, I will tell you that we were scheduled to have with us Mr. Elijah Helton, assistant principal and athletic director down at Union High School, who was going to come and introduce our next honoree. And however, just before we came over, he sent me some photographs. He was sitting on the overlook with two flat tires, two rims that had holes in it. I don't know what he hit, but it was something that did a lot of damage. And so he was waiting on a tow truck, and so I told him that I would try to stand in his stead. So Coach Mark Castle is the Union High School boys and girls cross country coach, and he was recently named the BHSL Boys Cross Country Coach of the Year. And prior to this honor, Coach Castle received the District and Regional Coach of the Year for 2 consecutive years. And of course, all of you are aware this past year, the Bears won the District, Regional, actually, I think it earned a perfect score at the region before moving on to the state 2A meet, in which they won there. And as I say, he was awarded the VHSL Cross Country Coach of the Year award. And Coach Castle is not only an excellent coach, he's an excellent teacher and role model, and obviously, as I said, he's a great coach. And we congratulate him on this very prestigious honor, and like so many that we have, we feel fortunate to have him working with our kids on a daily basis. And we wanted to bring him up tonight and recognize him. And again, we wanted his AD to do this, but as I told him, I said, well, we're going to have to go to Plan B. It's not going to be nearly as exciting without you here, but I'll try to do the best I can. So, Coach Castle, if you would come on up, we'd like to get a photograph of you. I could use a little time with Coach Castle myself, but I'm afraid I've moved on beyond that.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Congratulations, and thank you for all you do for kids.
Listen, it was, I just want to say this, I wish my kids could be here because, you know, when you coach, it's the kids that earn these awards for the coaches. We're just fortunate enough to be a part of it, but I won't say much, but I do want to say this, the support from our school and from our community and from our county was overwhelming. To go to a state championship meet and have the coaches from Central and Lee and East and East Side and all these different coaches support each other's kids, and the support of just an entire county with all of you guys and my school and the other schools was amazing. So I thank God for that, and thank God for allowing me to have 20 years in as a teacher and as a coach. So I'm very thankful, and I appreciate everything the county does for us and my school does for me. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Chair and members of the board, I wanted to share with you that during the week of October 19th, 23rd, through the 23rd, we celebrated School Bus Safety Week, and we also celebrated Transportation Employees Recognition Day on the 21st of October. And as all of you are aware, we've been blessed over the years with just excellent drivers who travel and pick up children over some very tough terrain and difficult weather conditions at times, and certainly their role has been pivotal to us during the pandemic in delivering food and instructional materials, deep cleaning our buses, and ensuring riders now are following accepted protocols. They have really played a very important role in our return to in-person instruction as well. And we want to thank the gentlemen over at the Bus Garage who, even though they're few in number, they take care of a lot of buses and a lot of fleet trucks and cars and vans. And anytime we have a state inspection, the performance of our fleet and what the inspectors find is always at the highest levels of work, and they put a very safe fleet on the road, and do a tremendous job, in helping us get our students to and from school, and our staff to workshops and other places that we have to travel. And certainly last but not least, we thank Mr. Giles for coordinating all of these various facets of the transportation program. And again, they're just top notch. And so the schools did several things during Recognition Day, and with some lunches and other things that they did on the school level. And so we just wanted to also tell them a big thank you tonight, and share with our board that we did have that celebration during October. And they do an excellent job for us.
Certainly do.
And Mr. Chair, I wanted to share with the board tonight sort of an update, a COVID update. And as our region continues to see positive case numbers increase and rise in the number of individuals that are quarantined and the impact on long-term care facilities, I try to provide you with the metrics each week that come out, and certainly as a region, in many of our counties, we're not seeing the numbers go in the direction that we want to see them. We have been blessed as a school division. Certainly we've had some staff members that have tested positive, some students, we've had some that have been in quarantine. We've been extremely fortunate up to this point. We've not had any clusters or outbreaks in a particular school or school community. Currently we have 4 students, I think, that are tested positive countywide. I think at this time we have 10 employees who are quarantined, and they're from various places in the county. We've not seen situations where our staff, faculty staff, has been impacted where we cannot provide services to our students. Right now, I think we have maybe a couple of aides, a couple of teachers, a couple of bus drivers, maybe a cafeteria staff member, perhaps a school member of our central office staff, administrative assistant. And so we've not had those concentrated clusters of cases that have really, certainly it's impacted those individuals, and our thoughts and prayers have been with them, but it's not impacted us in our ability to provide a safe educational setting. And I want to brag on our students and their parents and guardians, our administrators, our custodians, our nurses, our food service, our bus drivers. The mitigation plans that we developed, that this board developed, I think one of the things we can point to for the lack of impact that COVID has had on our school system up to this point is that I think everyone is giving their best efforts in terms of these are the things we must do, these are the cleaning protocols, the sanitizing protocols, this is how we washing our hands, and this is how social distance and mask wearing. And certainly we completely understand this could change at any moment. We could see a school or a community group of community schools, and we may have to make a decision to move to a different plan. We know that could happen certainly at any time, and we're prepared for and ready to do that if it were to become necessary, or at least we're prepared to recommend that to the board. We continue to meet with Dr. Cantrell each week. Joyce, our director of nursing, school nurses, they're in contact each day. And I think in terms of us, our reporting and trying to make sure that if we have a positive case and contact tracing, I think that's went quite well. And so, again, we feel very blessed, very fortunate that to this point we've not seen some of those real outbreak type situations in a particular area. That has forced us to have to move away from in-person for school or community of schools. So of course, I share with you the health metrics that come out each week. I also share with you anytime we have a positive case. Of course, we share that with our entire community in the event we have a case. But We are again pleased that we're able to continue to have our in-person instruction model. And we're hopeful that all that we have developed, the plans that we have in place will continue to put us in a good place in terms of staying there. Just want to sort of give you an overview of where we were at currently.
Thank you for keeping us informed, because if it ever did come to the point where we had to make a decision, this will give us the required context within which to make a good decision. And thank you for keeping us updated on that.
And the last thing tonight, Mr. Chair, I'll mention is, of course, as we end our highlight portion of the meeting, I wanted just to remind everyone that tomorrow is Veterans Day, and several years we've tried to, well, each year we've tried to always pay our respects to those that have served, and on several occasions we've invited our local VFW host to come and present a program in honor of our veterans. And of course, unfortunately, due to current circumstances, we're not able to do that this year. But we do certainly want to encourage all to celebrate and honor our veterans, and for their patriotism, their love of our country, our willingness to serve and sacrifice for the common good. So let's remember Veterans Day tomorrow.
Yes.
And that is all the highlights we have tonight, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins. We're down in item number 6, consent items. Is there a motion from anyone to accept or approve the consent items as presented to us?
So moved.
Okay, Philip. Have a second?
I'll second.
And we got Martha with a second. Those in favor of approving the consent items as presented to us, let it be known by aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries and the items are approved. Item number 7. Are there any additions or deletions or changes to be made to the minutes? This is from the last meeting. What was the date on that, Mrs. Durham?
October 13th.
October, this is the first October 13th. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Herb. Those in favor of approving the minutes, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And the minutes are approved. And we move down to item number 8, educational reports. Dr. Mullins.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, we have with us tonight Mr. Paul Clark, who will share news and information from the WCEA. Mr. Clark.
Hey, good evening. It's good to see all of you. I just want to back up what Dr. Mullins is saying. You know, I think you guys have handled things very well. You know, I get contacts on a constant that I talk to Dr. Mullins and say, teachers are concerned, parents are concerned. We hear rumors of other counties, but and I tell them, I'm sure, you know, we're well aware. If there is emergency, if it gets so bad, you know, you guys will handle it, Dr. Mullins. And if it gets really bad, you know, the governor will say, all right, it's time to shut down or start again or go back to virtual. And virtual is, for some children, fantastic. There's nothing that can ever take the place of your teachers in person. We miss so much things, so many things, you know, interactions with children. Even now, the social distance is a hard job. You know, you have kids who want to come up and they want to give you a hug or a high five, and you're like, I can elbow bump you, but I do. Knuckle bump you. But we're dealing with it. And, you know, life goes on. And hopefully change will come. You know, I hear rumors, you know, I heard Dr. Fauci said that the vaccine's coming sooner than they thought. So maybe things will be back to normal by 2020. I want to brag on Mr. Mullins. He did send us all an email. Next week is Education Week. He has blessed us once again to get a free lunch. But I ask each of you who represent the different schools in the county, if you have time, either to stop by or send an email to your teachers that you represent. They would love to hear from you. Just a little encouragement would be fantastic. It always goes a long way. I know you guys are busy. And, spring's coming. Hopefully things will change. Hopefully we'll get funding from the state. Money is a big concern. You guys will have a lot of work to do. I cannot imagine the fathom that all the things that we changed in the last 8 months, 10 months to make things work. Brag on your teachers. And I know you do. We can't hear it enough because, we're struggling. We're still struggling. We're still struggling, but we're making it because we love children. I will be having a virtual meeting next week on Tuesday with the District 8 schools. And we'll discuss all different kinds of things, and hopefully we'll share good points that happen with each other, and we can encourage each other. We don't meet and complain. We just meet and see how we're all working things out. And it's a virtual thing. I started last year telling you guys start working with the Board of Supervisors. You can do Zoom meetings, do that, work together. Have a good night.
Thank you, sir. Does that conclude education reports, Dr. Mullins?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Item 9, public comments. Is there anyone that wishes to address the board at this time? Public comments? And seeing no one, public comments is closed. Item 10, discussion. 10.1, response to public comment. There was none. Is that correct, sir?
Correct, Mr. Chair.
10.2, school activity fund audit handout. We got that at the last meeting. And so, Dr. Mullins.
Of course, you were provided with the school audit, activity audit, fund audit at the last meeting, Mr. Chair. And if any member of the board has any questions on this issue, certainly she'd be willing to answer those for you. But it's, the audit that we get every year, I think has the same types of information. If you have any questions, certainly we'd be glad to try to answer.
Does any board member have a question or comment to make concerning the activity fund audit? It looks like there are no questions, so let's go to 10.3, Starlink SpaceX Internet beta program.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I just want to keep you informed, and I want to share with you tonight, we're continuing to discuss the possibility of obtaining internet access to both those students that are unserved and the underserved, and of course, Mr. Kaiser and the technology department have been looking at a multitude of ways to make that happen, and they're continuing to deliver hotspots and so whatever is possible for us to do to help our students receive the services and access they need to do their work, then we continue to look for that. And of course, this is just one of the groups that we're talking with, and there's very specific talking points that we're continuing to discuss with them. But we're hopeful that this program could be part of the solution to providing internet to a wider range of our students and families. And one of the things we've seen with the pandemic creating this widespread need for virtual programming, we are going to continue to look for ways to provide that. And as we continue our discussions with them, we will certainly inform you at every step along the way. But this is one thing that we're excited about the possibilities, but we're not quite there yet. And so we'll certainly share that with you each time we interact with them, and hopefully we can make this happen sometime in the very near future.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from anyone? Let's go to team point 4, Virginia High School League guidelines for participation.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I shared with you the document that the high school league put out. It's a rather lengthy document entitled Guidelines for Return to District Participation. And of course, on that document, it points to the various groups that the VHSL received input from in coming up with these plans. And once they developed these, they met with members of Governor Northam's staff and of course members of the Virginia Department of Health, and they got input from just a number of various committees, school administrators, sports medicine advisory committees, USA football, USA field hockey, and I mean just a number of places that they reached out to for input as they developed these. And the one thing we know is that if we're able to begin athletic competition practices there the first week of December, it's certainly going to look a lot different than what we're used to. And in this document, and I certainly am not going to go through this tonight, but I did want to just touch on a couple of things that I pulled that we're used to having happen a certain way. And those of you that have sort of looked through this, in basketball, subtle changes like no jump balls. The visiting team gets the ball first. We're talking about cross country at no place on the course. Could the course be any more narrow than 6 feet, and using staggered starts for cross country? And softball, with the umpire standing well back and calling balls and strikes. Track and field is talking about sprinting events, and having an individual in every other lane. There's guidelines for transportation, guidelines for locker room usage. A football game, normally the teams are confined. I think it's probably maybe 30 to 30. And now it's from 20 to 20 to allow for social distancing on the sidelines, everyone with their own water bottle. And something we'll talk about just a little bit in more depth later on, but if we continue to have 250 as the maximum, 250 or 50% capacity of a facility, the number of guests or those that come to watch the games is going to be extremely limited. And a situation where you have 2 football teams with 45, 55, 60 kids, and then, the coaching staffs, the referees, the ticket takers, the chain crews on the sidelines, and perhaps your cheer team, are there going to be any seats available for a visiting team? And how will you decide, for those in the home team? Does each child get 2 tickets, 2 passes? And so those are things that our ADs and our conferences and districts are all working through now, but it's going to be different. But I do think it's important. I think if we're able to do it reasonably safely and follow the strategies that are in place, I think it's a good thing for children to be able to participate. But it certainly looked very, very different than anything we could, that we're accustomed to. And so did want you to have that document, and certainly there's every sport that the VHSL offers is in this document, and plans for how those sports will, how those games and practices will play out is all contained in that document. But as soon as we get more definitive guidelines for, and what I've suggested to our principals is that those districts or conferences, they develop a set of guidelines that district or that conference will follow. you know, for one school system to do one thing and another, I think that could really lead to some uncomfortable situations in terms of fans going to the game with the expectation that they're going to be able to view the game and be turned away. I mean, I think there's a lot of those things that has to be thought, and those certainly our schools have really been working overtime to do that. But you know, we're in November. Practice starts the first week of December. Contest just prior to Christmas and basketball, and so you know, those are things that we've got to have worked out, and they're working on it. I feel sure we'll have the guidelines for how that will unfold and who will be allowed to come and watch the games and that type of thing. But it's going to be a very different world. As you know, classroom teaching and everything else we've done this year has been very different. Athletics and other extracurricular activities will certainly be different as well. So I did want you to have that, and certainly if you have any questions as you read through those, and I'll certainly be glad to try to answer those. We're meeting with the principals tomorrow, and there were some things that they were going to bring to the secondary portion of the meeting in regards to athletics that we're going to talk about, and so we should have you know, rules of engagement here very soon. And certainly we'll share those with you when those are available. Is there any questions about these guidelines or how we may proceed extracurricular wise?
Any questions from anyone on the board? Certainly going to be different this term of our sports seasons topsy-turvy, and I like you. But we're doing this for the kids. We're doing this for the kids.
Yes,
the kids get to participate, and we need to maintain sight of that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
No questions? We'll continue on to 10.5, Dr. Mullins, the coronavirus relief funds.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I want to share with you some information regarding the CRF funds that were awarded to school divisions actually just prior to our last board meeting. Those awards were approved by Governor Northam to each school division and other local education agencies, and they were approved to help cover the costs preparing for and responding to and mitigating the impact of COVID-19. And of course, these awards were intended for costs incurred related to COVID-19 and reopening and operating our public schools during the first months of the 2021 school year, and certainly can be used for qualifying costs all the way back to March of 20. And certainly we have carefully looked at the allowable expenses, and we initially felt like the possibly best use for this funding would be to replenish PPE supplies, facility cleaning and sanitizing supplies, technology, and you know, that was our first thoughts. And as we began to interact with Dr. Lane, State Superintendent, and the Deputy Superintendent of Finance, Mr. Kent Dickey, we had a couple of different calls with them. It was shared that these funds could be utilized for hazard pay for a great majority of our employees in at least two different ways. And of course, the first way is working in person with multiple students. Sort of fell under the term of hazardous duty while planning and teaching and still, you know, trying to meet the needs of our remote students at the same time. And, you know, presenting us with another level of hardship. And of course, one of the things that was pointed out as well is in the emergency temporary standard recognizes that our teachers are medium risk employees, and according to the Department of Labor, hazard pay means additional pay for performing a hazardous duty or work involving physical or hazardous hardships. And so as we began to interact with other school divisions and talk with them about their plans, the one thing we've talked about at each of our meetings for a period of months now are are the above and beyond efforts that have been required of our employees to try to meet the needs of our students and their families during this pandemic. It has not been easy by any stretch of the imagination, and again, to watch how we've worked to make sure that we've kept our buildings clean and sanitized and our buses clean and sanitized, and we've hauled meals all over the country, county, and educational materials, and teachers cleaning their classrooms and sanitizing and wiping down desks. And it has been certainly a challenge, and I know we're all aware of that. But it goes on to talk about, specifically states that employee use of face coverings for contact inside of 6 feet of co-workers, customers, or other persons is not an acceptable administrative or work practice to control or achieve minimal occupational contact. And so therefore the risk associated with medium to very high classified employees, there's no way to adequately alleviate that situation is deemed to impose a physical hardship upon anyone in those circumstances. And so, as I've said, our employees have been at their best, when their very best has been required of them. And I would recommend that we consider using these funds to provide our employees with a hazard pay stipend. And I would also recommend that those employees who are not necessarily considered very high or medium risk be provided a hazard pay stipend as well, as they too have worked diligently during this time, but do not qualify under that high or medium risk category in some circumstances. There's not that many of those in that particular category, and certainly we could fund a stipend for them through either less restrictive CARES funding or a small amount of local funding. And we have considered and have shared with you our recommendation would be $1,000 for our full-time employees and $500 for our part-time employees, our hourly employees. And certainly this is not a tremendous amount of money. It certainly does not compensate for the amount of time and effort and energy and blood, sweat, and tears that they've invested in trying to reopen our schools and provide virtual instruction. But it is something, and we think it would be impactful. We think it would be, certainly, I think they're worthy of it. And we just feel like that this rewards them for their Herculean efforts for the past several months, and still, with providing this with them, we will still have a reserve that will allow us to meet our needs, we feel, for the remainder of the year. And certainly we have some other CARES funding that a little less restrictive that we can use for PPEs, cleaning, sanitation supplies, taking care of the needs of our special populations. And so at this time I will stop and ask if there are questions regarding what I shared with you. That's just the thoughts that I have. I've shared those with our staff and have worked with them on what it potentially could look like. And again, it's not a tremendous amount of money, but it is something, and rewarding them for all that they have done since the pandemic has started. And so, but I certainly again would ask if you have any questions. I'd be glad to try to answer at this time.
I'd like to remind the board that was the amendment to our agenda tonight. We added the decision on this as 11.3 under action. So if you have questions, let's get them answered.
Is this funding the last CRS funding that the governor released about a month ago?
Yes.
Okay.
And that
Or
funding does have to be spent. They gave an extension, it could go out. You could actually disperse the funds up to January 15th, a little later, but it has to be encumbered before the end of the year. So it's not like we could save the money to spend if something happens in the spring. We have to use it.
But you're comfortable with all the other supplies and stuff that you have bought since March up to this time with the funds that have been distributed to us earlier?
I am comfortable with all that.
And actually spoke with Mr. Lawson today, and he's very comfortable with what we have, what we're able to currently obtain. He feels very comfortable with where we're at.
Do you anticipate this pay before Christmas?
That would be our plan, yes. It would work if we're able to do that. The board supports doing this, Mr. Short. It would work well for the finance department if this went out maybe 8th, 9th, or 10th prior to the regular payroll going out. It would make it a little more manageable for them, and I think it's important too that they receive it as a separate, just to fold it in with their regular pay. I don't think is as impactful, but my hope is if we do end up moving in this direction, that they would receive that as that hazard pay stipend, and then at a later point in the month will receive their regular. Or that would just be, I think, a talk with finance the way that would be best for them. I think most impactful to our employees as well.
Well, if you lump it in with their regular pay, then that's going to increase the withholdings that they would have to pay.
There's tax implications for that too, so, we don't.
Not as much as if it was in their regular pay.
Right. That's one thing to consider. As you all know, December is a hard month because we do one payroll for the 15th payroll, and then we try to turn right around. And this December, our end of the month payroll has to be finished around the 18th, 19th, something like that, in order for everybody to have it early. And so that middle week hits well. And if we don't, if we were to put it into both of those payrolls, especially the month-end payroll, you have those deductions. We've had some people don't realize they got it. I know that seems impossible, but that's happened before with stipends.
The taxes notwithstanding, I think it's a good idea to give it separately, because it shows that we recognize the efforts they put forth and the risk that they take, for their students and for their profession. And I think it means more to them that way. So I like that idea. Anyone else? If there are no more questions about the coronavirus relief funds, let's continue on to 10.6, inclement weather virtual schools.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, as we, certainly our technology department had a great deal to do with it, but as we begin to work on our virtual instruction piece early on in the pandemic, of course, virtual instruction has been part of what we've done for a number of years, but as it really became, come into focus when the pandemic first was upon us, as we continue to develop that virtual platform, one of the things that we've even talked about in our meetings is on the other side of this pandemic, what are the possible ramifications of building this robust virtual instructional program, and how may that benefit us as we move on into the future. And of course, one of the pieces we've talked about is that on some of our snow days, that there could be a possibility on certain days. I don't think this is certainly something we could plan to do each and every snow day. But I think maybe an example, if on Monday we begin to hear news that from lots of different reporting agencies that Thursday and Friday we're going to get a significant snow event. and teachers could begin to talk with their students and begin to load up some remediation work or some review work, and have that ready and prepared and share with the students. You know, in the event we're off Thursday and Friday, these will be virtual days, this will be what we do, this is where it's at in Google Classroom, this is the jump drive that's required. You know, on those types of situations, I think at the end of a winter season, if we have 15 days, it's possible that we maybe could capture 5 or 6 days that ordinarily we would have had to have made up, and maybe not have to make those up if we could provide that instruction on those days. But I think it would be more difficult if we left school on a Monday, we had some kind of weather event blow in Tuesday that no one really was expecting. We're all at home, or in situations where maybe snow has created power outages countywide or throughout many of our communities. I just think there are some days that this will not be something that we could use. But I do believe that there's a possibility we could perhaps use it on those days when we really could plan for it and make sure we get everything in everyone's hands. And so it just, again, would give us the ability, even if at the end of a school year there were 2 days that we didn't have to make up that we ordinarily would have, I think it would be certainly worth our time and effort to think about using it in those situations. And it may be that if we try it a couple of days and it goes extremely well, that it's something we could use a little more than we think. But at least at the beginning, it would be for those ideal situations in which we really have the ability to prepare and make sure that our students are prepared and their families. And it certainly wouldn't be days that we would be, putting out brand new instruction. I think it would be more of a continuance of what was already going on in class during a given week. And it may be a practice kind of situation where they can continue rather than just maybe stay home for 2 or 3 days. And then when we come back, have to sort of start some of that over again. It will allow maybe, as I say, them to continue to be engaged somewhat with what was already going on in their classrooms. We've talked about this in our Region 7 Superintendent's meeting. I think a lot of people are looking at utilizing this in some similar fashion that I've just shared with you tonight. But it would be something that we would certainly take a look at it and maybe in the right situation, roll it out for a day or two, see how it goes, and then if we need to go back and retool a little bit before utilizing it again, then that would be our approach. But just wanted to share with you what it potentially could look like, how it could potentially help us. But I don't think it's certainly something we could go into the winter and saying we will no longer have any snow days. I certainly don't think that would be the case. But if you have any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer those.
Our snow events will emerge on the spur of the moment, but our virtual days require planning, and they require some time and some advanced warning. So I like that part about it. And a lot of our students are somewhat less than enthusiastic about taking their snow day and doing school work. And so you want to always get their maximum effort. So by not making this every day that we are absent due to snow is a good idea. I kind of parse it out as it makes sense, and that it needs to be. And other board members' questions? Comments? Board's kind of quiet tonight. Let's go to one more questions. Let's go to 10.7, the Region 7 Virtual Academy.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I mentioned to this just briefly previously about the Region 7 Superintendent's Group currently exploring the possibility of starting our own Region 7 Virtual Academy. And of course, it's just in the early conversation stage, but one of the things that we feel like we've learned is now that the virtual instruction piece is out of the box to the extent that it is, I don't think we're going to be able to put it back in the box. And we can either sort of chart our course for the future, or let someone else chart it for us. And I will tell you that what has been discussed so far in no way could take care of the virtual needs that we currently have. It would be, if our school division had an interest in being part of the virtual academy, there would not be unlimited slots for any division that wanted to be part of it. It would be for those situations, well, for instance, in our own division right now, the number of students that we have that are homeschooled or that have enrolled in other virtual programs, we've lost a few students to some other virtual programs in Virginia. It would allow us to capture those individuals if they wanted to be part of our virtual program. It would allow us to enroll them back in our school division, and they could be part of this virtual academy if they didn't want to attend a brick and mortar school. But also for some of those classes that due to maybe a low interest level, it may be that a school would have 5 students that was interested in physics, and another school would maybe have 5, and another school would have 8. And this virtual program will allow us maybe the possibility to offer physics to our county, and we may not necessarily have a teacher in any of our buildings, but our students will be able to achieve it and enroll in it through this academy. So again, there's not, the framework is not really in place yet. All that superintendents have been asked to do at this point is to develop a number, the questions that we have, what we may need to serve our needs, what we feel like would be the best kind of program to have, and just share with the group if we have an interest in being part of it and further explore it. I will tell you that later on this month, the link has not been shared yet, but I will share it with our board members. There will be a virtual conference one evening, I think it's 6 o'clock, and board members and central office staff members can be part of that webinar and just hear what may be possible, and certainly have questions and answer, question and answer period at the end of the session. If we have an interest and sometime here in the next couple of months we say we feel like there's enough good there that it would be beneficial for our division, and we decided to move along and move forward and be part of the academy, each division that is part of the academy would be asked to select one of their board members to serve on the academy's governing board. And of course, we still have our relationship with the governor's school, with our community college, with UVA, and all of those relationships will continue as they are. But this may give us, again, the possibility of capturing some of our students that have left us, some of those students in those specialized courses, some students that have specific learning needs that maybe it'd be easier to meet through a combined effort. And so, again, we're just in the early stages, but I wanted you to be aware of it. We will continue to bring you information back as we develop what it potentially could be. And at some point in time, we'll make a collective decision on whether this would be something we have an interest in. And if so, then you as board members would select one of your colleagues to serve on that governing board. But we haven't signed on yet. We've not threw our hat in the ring, but we're continuing to ask questions, and we'll continue to ask questions and see if this will meet some of our needs. But I do just want you to be aware, and every step of the way I will keep you informed as to where we are, what we think the benefits are, and whether or not we think it's good for our division. So if you have any questions of what currently is being discussed, I'd be glad to try to answer those for you.
Would this be available to our younger elementary age kids as well, potentially?
It would be, and again, Dr. Raymond, I think one of the questions, Ms. Short and I were on a webinar one day when we were discussing this, and they were initially talking about, my goodness, a small number of slots per grade level. And we said, well, that's great, but it in no way meets all of our needs. And so trying to scale it up to where it could really have an impact on our children that are taking part virtually is going to take a lot of planning. And of course, you know, you would have to staff it, and there would have to be a virtual academy principal, there would have to be a virtual academy counselor, and a governing body that would oversee, you know, the program itself. They would have to adopt a governing set of bylaws and guidelines of how it works, how it's funded, and but yes, to answer your question, it would involve K-12, you know, all the way through. But again, some of the questions that you have, we've already asked, and we'll continue to be part of those discussions. But I did want you to certainly be aware that we're talking about it, and we'll see what potential impact it could have for our community.
Would it be required to submit to the accreditation standards of the state or some other agency?
It would be, getting this up and running would take us as a region much less time than it would have 10 years ago, because we've already had some virtual academies established in the state in other areas, and one of the things we could do is to take what they've done and how they've become established, and as a matter of fact, one of the Zoom conferences that we were on was with Dr. Michael Bowling. Some of you may remember him. He was over the years served various roles at the VDOE. One of them was he was over the math at the VDOE math department, and he started his own virtual academy from the ground up, and so in our conversation with him and what the groundwork that they've already done would take us a lot less time and effort to get ours accredited and up and running. So there would be a process, but it would be much less time consuming for us than it would be if it had not been done.
Any questions from other members of the board? Hearing none, let's continue on to 10.8. Extracurricular passes in the National Federation of State High School Associations.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I sort of touched on this as we were talking about the return to play guidelines the VHSL put out, and of course our schools have completed certainly those schedules that will open those events, sporting events and other extracurricular that will open up first. Those schedules are completed, and we have the framework for beginning practices for the winter sports there during the first week of December. And as I shared earlier, we know we will have a very limited attendance at most of all these events. And as I shared with you, once you begin to look at all of those people that are necessary for the event to take place, doesn't leave a lot of room for spectators, and especially in the same football. If you think about those schools that have a great band program, if you have 50 players on each team, another 20 plus coaches, give or take, referees and the chamber, and then you have your band, and you have your cheerleaders. I mean, there's a lot of questions I think that have to be answered and implemented before our season start. But one of the things that I do believe the schools are talking about are parents and guardians, being able to come and watch their children play to the extent possible, and other relatives in terms of however many slots we have. But one of the things that we've talked about more than once, our high school principals, is the amount of money that it takes to fund these programs. When you start talking about uniforms and even something as simple as a dozen baseballs and footballs and helmets and shoes and just any number of things, is trying to pay for these things. And normally gate receipts drives a lot of the athletic budgets, and certainly those sports where we are used to having rather large gates. Those sports help fund some of those sports that don't see that type of gate receipts. And so one of the things that we've talked with them about, and I think this is something you'll see pretty much statewide, is that during this particular season that we take a year off from the extracurricular passes, VHSL passes, National Federation passes, VSBA passes, and those limited number of spectators that we're actually able to have, that they actually purchase a ticket. As all of you know that's been involved with athletics, a lot of coaches, for instance in football, we would always do fall billing, but we would order things late winter, early spring the year prior to, and then they would allow us to pay for it once we begin to receive gate receipts. And so, several sports have already ordered and gotten equipment in and uniforms that now they're having a real difficult time paying for without these gate receipts. And so I do believe that that this is the approach that you'll see pretty much throughout the state. And the one option that I want to share with you tonight is the NFHS network. And this is a network that installs camera systems. They've got them installed in our gyms and in our football stadiums. And anyone that is not able to go to the game in person, or just decides not to fight the crowd, or if it's 18 degrees one night, or what have you, you can go to this NFHSnetwork.com, and you can watch any, and I think in a month, the fee for a month I think is $10.99, but for an entire season I think it's maybe $69, and you can watch any event that occurs at any of those facilities from the comfort of your living room. They're done live in real time, and they're also archived. If you, for whatever reason, can't watch it live, you can go back and watch it the next day or the next week. And so, perhaps that would offer another possibility for folks to see our games that may or may not can attend in person. But I did want to just recommend that for this year that we simply do forego our passes and whatever number of participants or patrons we can get into our games, that they purchase a ticket to help support our programs. But I will, and of course, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to put this information up on our Facebook page and up on our school website. So if folks want to look into having those games broadcast on their computer at home, then certainly that would be something available to them. We're going to try to get that out there and really push that for those that again can't attend in person.
Dr. Mullins, I assume that we get part of that funding that people buy into that, which I use that myself to watch games.
And I've done the same. It's pretty high quality.
What percentage of schools get?
Excuse me?
What percentage of schools get from?
They get a small percentage of this cost, but where they get all of anything. This network actually sells ads to businesses, to sporting goods manufacturers, and they get anything that they're able to, that the NFHS provides, any advertisement that's done on there. The schools get it all. But they also get a small percentage of this funding as well. But I think where they really do well is, and I think a number of people actually pay for the ads on it. And they solicit them, you know, and ask for them if they'd like to have an ad on this program.
So all our schools will be involved in that?
Yes, yes. Matter of fact, Mr. Kaiser, did we just have another camera set up here in the last couple of weeks at one of our?
No, sir, not yet. We're executing the contract. When we initially engaged the NFHS network and installed in all the other locations, we could not install at Bullock Park because the school system does not own it, and there wasn't internet access there at the time. So that has now been worked out. We've signed an addendum. The only part, you know, we are going to be installing that one ourselves instead of having them install it. But the paperwork submitted for that, as soon as we receive the equipment, they give us 7 days to install it. It has to be installed within 7 days, and then they waive the $1,500 installation fee. So as long as we self-install it within 7 days, we don't pay them a fee. So.
But it will be available on all facilities. Yes.
Dr. Mullins, how this 250 people football games, and that includes the visitors and the home and the whole works?
It includes everyone that's in attendance at a facility.
How are we going to police that? I mean, for example, I had a guy today. He asked me about this, and I came in the meeting. I didn't know that it was 250. I think you might have mentioned that, but I asked Mr. Short, and he said, yeah, it's 250 total. And I said, well, I had a guy today say, well, I can go to the games. I'll get in. I said, well, I don't know. I didn't know what to say to him because I didn't know the numbers. We'll have a lot of that. And that's going to be really, really tough for us to police, and I don't know how we'll do it. Because as you well know, around here, when we tell them they can't go to a game, it's going to be tough.
Yes.
And I really don't know. I don't know how we're going to police that.
And I agree, Mr. Graham. And you know, the one thing, I actually had a principal during one of our executive committee meetings. He said we are strongly considering having just the teams, the team personnel, cheerleaders, band, announcers, and that's it. Not going to be anyone else. And you know, that, and again, and let's say we're able to provide X number of passes for every player to have for his mother, father, guardian. At no time when we travel on the road, you would never be able to attend a game that's on the road, you know,
No.
because they would use all those for the home team. And so I think
That's exactly, I don't know what principal that did that, but I don't know how you could do that. I don't know how you could say, okay, these people are going to get to go, and these people don't get to go.
Yeah.
You know,
I think unless you can do it equitably, I mean, you know, do you have a lottery system? Do you have a bingo cage? And I mean, I just think I think there's going to be some real, and again, I think that's, the last time we met, that was really, that has been part of every discussion that these ADs and principals have had now for weeks. Is where do we, you know, where do we end up? What is it going to look like? What's going to be equitable? And you know, as a former coach, of course, I've been out of, you know, for a number of years, and they live it and breathe it every day. But I have really given it a lot of thought to what will this look like, and how do we make sure, you know.
I can tell you it's going to be a nightmare. It's what it's going to be. I mean, I'll give you an example. Mona Bates not getting to watch a Union football game, and then her sitting in the stands and old grandmother over here not getting to go, and they see her sitting up there. I use that because he don't care if I use that. But that's an example that would happen, and they will. Or if I was at a football game at Central, sitting there, and then some parent can say, well, how do you get to go and I don't get to go?
Yeah, your board member. Yeah.
You just because you're a board member, that's not right. Or a board member's got a player.
Yeah.
You know, it's gonna be, it's really gonna be tough unless they just say, boom.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of strange, I mean, pretty clear that way more people can fit into a football stadium than into, say, a gym. That they would keep those numbers the same, that's a little odd to me. And I can't imagine they didn't think about that.
Well, and I will tell you now, the last meeting we had, the last executive committee meeting, Billy Hahn, that's the executive director, now they are making and have made and continue to make a strong push to move that to 1,000. It's not happened yet, but now that is the desire and goal of the
Is it
executive.
do what, I missed that, what, do
To
more?
move that number to 1,000.
Well, I mean, you know, it doesn't make sense, I agree. It doesn't make sense that you can go outside and only have 250, but you're inside with 250. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Makes sense at all there.
Not to mention the field's way further away than the court. I mean, several different parameters you can look at, and that's odd.
Well, you know, and I'll tell you, I've shared with you before, former player, former coach of sports was pretty much the only thing that I had any interest in for a number of years in my life. I certainly was a whole lot more interested in the athletic side than I was the academic for a period of years, but so it's something that means a great deal to me. But you know, when I watched some of those games that were on TV on Friday nights in Tennessee, because they were supposed to have some limits, and it was pretty much wide open.
Yeah.
And you know, then all of a sudden you've got this team has to cancel their playoff game, and this team they're not.
Exactly.
And you know, I'll worry about that side of it too. You know, how are we going to manage not only who gets to watch, but how are we going to ensure with all of these, especially in these close contact, you know, wrestling, football, basketball, you know, even volleyball to a certain extent, and so it's going to be challenging in a lot of different ways. But as soon as we get the rules for moving forward, I will provide those to the board, and we're certainly going to put them out so that the public will understand what we're trying to do. But it's going to be very different.
How did they come up with the number 250?
That's a good question.
Because I just think it's really ironic they would only allow 250 people in a football stadium, but Walmart can let 400 people in for Black Friday sale.
Well, what they're doing, that's the point I was making. What they're doing, they don't want fans, really, do they? They just want the game to go on. Because if you're talking about 250 people in a football, counting the band and the cheerleaders and the football, both football teams, that's 250 people. So it's really going to be, they don't really want, they think it's best not to have fans.
Well, if you look at you look at some of those 4A schools, I mean, some of them have 70 players.
Well, we got schools in
Yeah.
our district that
Yeah.
Reedview and Union get together. They got 70 students sitting in
Yeah.
players each one.
That's
That's
right.
140, not counting 15 coaches each side.
Like everybody has their own personal
Yeah.
coach. You know?
Yeah. You've got 200 already.
Well, Union's got a tremendous band. I mean,
Oh, they got 100,
coaches.
yeah, 75 to 100.
Yeah, they have close to probably 100 in their band. I mean, it's.
Well, Gate City's got 70 plus in their band, though.
Yeah.
Well, they already don't.
Oh, they got more than 70.
They have
Yeah.
bands in
Yeah.
the basketball games.
I mean, there's a huge band. So,
And you know, those kids, those students that are involved in the band, they work hard, deserve a chance to be out there and display their wares. And
That's
so,
right.
You know, you can't. There's going to be some challenges.
Well, that's what I would imagine, and I have no clue. I would imagine that's where the 250 number came up. They probably added all the bands and the football teams and the cheerleaders, coaches, administration of the schools, and came up near that number and said that was all we're going to allow. So they really probably don't want fans.
Well, you know, if you look at it, from, let's say basketball, say 14 players on the team.
Yeah.
You know, 3 or 4 coaches. It's sort of inequitable in that you would have the opportunity to have more fans there because of the limited number of participants. Same thing.
Inside, that don't make
Yeah,
sense.
Same thing in volleyball, and so, you know, that doesn't really jive. But again, we don't have, the good thing is football is not until, it doesn't begin up until February, and so by that time, it may be that we begin vaccinating some folks, it may be that the cold weather has sort of helped us with this, and it may be that the constant pressure by the league, we may be looking at 1,000 by then. We start out with these things in the gym, and so
Well,
we'll
with
see.
1,000, you could probably, you could make it work because you'd have 2 people allowed for every participant, the band and cheerleaders and the football teams, and 2 tickets for that family.
Be a lot more manageable.
Right, and then the school would get a little more money
Right.
also.
The 250 is because we're in phase 3 of the
Yeah.
Virginia plan.
Right.
That's where the 250 came from.
Right.
Is that where it came?
Yeah, from where?
So these are trickled down.
Phase 3.
Right, the governors.
Because we're the governor's.
Oh, phase 3, yeah.
The governor's
Yeah.
phase 3.
Well, more than likely, we won't be out of the phase 3 by February.
Well, probably maybe our best hope is not to be back in phase 2.
Right.
That phase 3 may be the best case scenario, but we don't know. But as soon as we get concrete information, we'll certainly share that with the board, and we'll put it out for public consumption as well, as quickly as we're there.
Any other questions? Let's proceed down to item 11, action items. Is there a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendations for employment?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor of the approving employment recommendations, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. 11.2, school activity funds audit. Is there a motion to approve the activity fund audit as presented to us?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
No, Phil, okay. And those in favor of approving the school activity fund audit, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Now to our addendum where we changed the agenda at the beginning of the meeting. This be 11.3. It refers to the CRF hazard pay, the coronavirus relief funds. This is the stipend. Now let me see if I get this motion correct. So the motion would be to approve the stipend recommendation by the superintendent, which would use CRF funds plus a limited number of local funds. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Okay. And is there a second?
Second.
I'm going to give that one to
Martha.
Martha. She's been second all night. I second love. We got you,
I've
Martha.
been first couple times.
Those in favor of approving this motion for the stipend, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Any general information? Okay. Any new items? Let's begin with board comments. Let's see. Ms. Vicky, how about you? You got anything to say?
I'll pass tonight.
Oh, okay. Mark?
I'm just glad to see that idea about the new, potentially the new playground play area at Cover Middle School. I was unaware of that till tonight. I'm about embarrassed to say that, but it's true. And I think it's a great idea. That's all.
Yes.
Martha?
Happy to see that we can give the teachers a stipend, just to be able to reward them just a little bit for the extra work they've had to do during all this and tell them how much we appreciate them. So I think that's a great idea.
Yes. Herb?
Well, I'd like to congratulate all of our retirees for the number of years that they've served the Wise County school system and wish them the best in the future. And I'm also to our teachers for this, to be able to give them this extra for their hard work over the last 7 or 8 months, because most of our teachers have really gone up and above the call of duty during all this virtual classrooms and stuff. So it's good that we can do this for them.
John?
I also am particularly glad that we got to give the teachers and the staff members a little something for what they've been doing and going through. I can't even imagine. And also the Coburn Middle School work, that was really good down there. That'll be really good for their school, because they didn't really have much of a playground area. And the retirees, I'm tickled to death for them, but I hate to lose that many people at one time.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, I would echo all what they said, that we lost some good teachers from retirement, no doubt about that. I know most of them, and they were really, really good. And I'm glad that we can also give a stipend to our teachers. It's been a rough year for them, and they do a good job under that condition. And I wanted to thank everybody in Central Office too, because I know it's been hard for y'all this year. We overlook it sometimes, and I know that I know that y'all are working every minute trying to make sure things are pulled together and do well. So thank all of y'all for that.
And I forgot, I want to congratulate also the coach for Coach of the Year. I'm sure well deserved.
And like Mr. Bates said, we focus sometimes on the efforts put forth by the teachers, which are many and very important. But we need to recognize that our central office staff, is trying to provide an overwatch and oversight for us, provide guidance for us when we need it, and we do appreciate that. And retirees, quite a few. In the number of years, one was 40-some years, I believe, and I thought there goes a lot of experience, a lot of valuable experience, and put it all together. It's a lot, but you work. You want to retire one of these days. You can't work forever, and they deserve it. And I'm real pleased for them. And as far as the stipend goes, I'm so glad that the board was able to accommodate that tonight for our employees. Like I said earlier, it gives them a chance. We recognize the efforts they put forth, and we also recognize the risks that they take on behalf of their kids. And our next board meeting will be December the 8th. It's every Tuesday in December. Is there any reason to alter that date that you know of? Okay. Because we'll make sure our payroll was on time and everything. Okay. And having completed our agenda, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.